Ah, there it goes. Alright. Yes. Welcome back. Another week. Another nickel, and hold up, let me get this starting soon text off my screen here. There we go. There we go. And then I will say, hey everyone, JC Cool here, and welcome to another live stream from Coolcraft Season 6. And, hi, the green screen's broken. I kind of expected that, to be fair. Let me land safely here before I do anything else. Oh, great. It's a wandering trader with the broken llamas on the roof. We have yet to update to 20.5, by the way, because obviously mods and data packs need to be updated. To be clear, oh, it's the other side that's having issues. That I did not expect. Especially considering... Okay, well, everything's just broken right now. It's all gone to hell. It's also very bright outside still, despite being 7 p.m., so that's great. Yes, a lot of things have happened. We're getting a 1.20.6 next week, so that's fun. Most patches to a major version of Minecraft since 1.8. That's exciting, I guess. Even if literally 2 of them are quick hot fixes that released just after another update. But hey, that's life anyhow. Yes, today's stream is a bit late. There's a good reason for that. It's because the WAN show this week was actually early. It was like 4 p.m. my time when the WAN show started this week. So, yeah, I was watching that. It's not yet done. I think it's going to end soon, though. So I was like, okay, fine. I'll get live stream. But that means there's not a hard time limit on when we're going to be stopping the stream today. Also, this is going to be the last regularly scheduled live stream at least from Coolcraft. We're going to do another one on Sunday, but that will be the last regularly scheduled live stream for at least a while. So yeah, I'll look forward to that. But yeah, anyhow, to the stream. Today, I am going to be doing something I really realistically should have done a while ago. But, I mean, 171,000 minutes ago on the server, which is building the map face art of me. Because if you recall, all the way back in episode 1, I was saying, I hope I included this in the video. Anyhow, the map face art this season is at 100,000 minutes because last season everyone hit it within the first week. So it's taken me a while. No one else has hit it yet, so I don't know if anyone will. But I'm finally getting up to actually doing the building of the map face art. Just need map face art. To remember, we need 5 shulker boxes of white wool. Alright. Which of course we're gonna have to get. And then I gotta figure out where the hell I'm actually building this thing. But yeah. The weather's also been crazy this week. Because like right now, it's pretty damn warm out. I have a fan in the window. That's how warm it is. And then earlier this week, in fact last night, it was basically It was basically water, the temperature at which water freezes outside. So yeah, it's fun. But hey, I'm now done with. But hey, along with the whole no more regularly scheduled live streams, it is, therefore the end of the semester because I have no more actual classes left. I just have 2 final exams, I want to say. Well, okay. I have 1 final part to an exam that was for some reason split up into 3 parts. And then another actually final exam. Yeah. So there's that. Let's see, what else is going on? Whew. Besides that, the week has been rather tame. Oh! I have an update on the my GPU's crashing situation. It has, by the looks of things, been resolved. But the way it was resolved is weird. So, Intel customer support asked me to try a few things like removing the second GPU from my system, see if that was causing the crash. It wasn't. Then they also asked me to move the GPU to the slot that the second GPU is currently in because, I don't know, maybe the motherboard slot is defective. Which, now that with what I know now, is not actually as absurd as you might think it is. So I did that, and it didn't crash. And then, which was interesting, I was like, okay, maybe my motherboard is defective. But then I was like, okay, I'm hoping I'm hoping that this idea that I'm in the wrong building. I'm hoping that this thing that I think might be true is actually the case, which would be that my motherboard isn't defective. Which is that when I move the card back into the slot that it's in now, it also wouldn't crash. Which, what do you know? That's what's happened. Taking the slot out of the card and putting it back in. Oh yeah, we have LAs here at downtown in case anyone wants them now. Well, anyone wants to duplicate them specifically. But yeah, taking the card out of the slot and putting it back in completely fixed the issue. Which means that it was something to do with how the slot was situated in the slot. I guess it could also technically be how the... I guess it could also be... Okay. Duh. Say things right. So, I'm guessing that the issue could be one of two situations. Either one, I took the... Either one, there's like a piece of dust in the actual PCI slot that got there when it was transporting the thing back and forth, and that lane was not super heavily used to where the dust actually made a critical thing until under very heavy workloads from DirectX, and maybe when the card heated up. No, hold on, let me find these in here. That's the first bit. Or the second bit is that one of the cables from the power supply wasn't situated in there correctly. Alright. Alright. That'll take a second. But yeah, that or one of the power supply cables wasn't situated in there correctly, and removing the cable and putting it back in helped. But whatever it was, my graphics card's now working now, which means I can play DirectX and graphically intense games once again. Whether or not I'm doing that on stream, I don't know, but hey, I currently am wanting to do a live stream when Satisfactory version 1.0 comes out. I want to live stream me and JRDCool playing that. Whether or not that comes out in the fall and I'm here, or if it comes out over the summer and I'm at home, in which case only one of us will be able to live stream because of Spectrum's horrible internet speeds, is remaining to be seen. Is that only one of them? Okay, okay. JRDCool, if you are listening, your shop is freaking broken. Here, I will, once this thing comes through, I will show you what I mean by your shop is freaking broken. Should have come through by now. You see, there happens to be an issue with the way you built this thing. In which, where's this? This is happening. Maybe the other one did come through. But yeah, the shulker boxes are going in weird places. I don't know which one of these is white wool, but yeah, that one just kind of like popped out here. I don't know where that other one went, quite honestly. There should have been 2 shulker boxes out there. I don't know where the other one went. You need to seal the top of that thing. Is he out of white wool, by chance? Your shop is being stupid and broken and, oh, look at that, you're out of white wool. Apparently. Which means these 2 credits may in fact be... Well, you could turn on the stream or come on to the server, so, but yes, that's that. Which one of these is the white wool one? This one, I'm guessing. There's no shulker box. Well, that is definitely white wool. Alright, I will take 3, because I've only acquired 2 shulker boxes so far. I'll just like press the button again so that this credits go in. But I did pay for this stuff. I'll just have to take it out of here. Very inopportune time for this to be broken. That clicking sound's a bit annoying. What is that clicking sound, actually? I need 2 more stacks. Perfect. Alright. Oh, what? Oh. Well, that's funny. Just press the button again so the credits get eaten up. And then I guess we'll show JRD Cool the issues. Oh no, I'm very funny. Very funny. Anyway, once he gets over here, we will show him where things are broken. There he is. So, if we come around here, first of all, the first issue is that the droppers could sometimes shoot stuff out so that they actually land outside of the water stream here. So instead of landing in the water stream, they'll like land on the side here, or in the case that just happened, inside it. Well, okay, you need to do that. The second issue is your white wool shulker box filler is broken. Because there's no white wool shulker boxes in here anymore. So yeah, you need to prime that. Anyhow, yeah, and I think, and you know, so I guess yeah, you just got to cover all of these droppers and that. Anyhow, I will be off to do what I was going to do in this live stream. And yeah. Alright, that's the wool shop visited. And now, let's find a place to build this map art. I'm thinking we should do it probably over the ocean, because that way we won't have to worry about mobs spawning underneath it. Actually, I'm going to get some dirt blocks out of my storage system first. That would probably be a good idea. Stupid wandering trader on the roof. Oh yeah. I don't remember if I was talking about I don't remember exactly what last stream I was talking about in regards to Minecraft 1.20.5. But yeah, at the time of the last stream happening, we were only on release candidate 2, not release candidate 3. But we did get a release candidate 3, so it wasn't technically wrong. Ooh, excuse me. Also, all the raid mechanic changes are in 1.21, not 1.20.5. So there's that. But hey, a lot of other things are changed though. Like none of the data packs I don't think work anymore. Actually, the data packs I made, which are relatively simple, probably aren't broken. But the ones that we've gotten off vanilla tweaks are definitely broken. A lot of them are. I found out that while I was upgrading, or while I was doing testing in the process of upgrading mods, as hey, all the mods that I make and I've actually released are actually fully up to date to 1.20.5. You can find them all on my GitHub if you're interested. Okay, it's middle of the okay, thank you. Middle of the frickin' ocean here. All right, but yeah, so all my mods are completely updated. Go look at them, and it actually really wasn't all that hard to update them. Specifically the Discord chat mod, which I was expecting to be a little bit harder to update, was actually the easiest one to update somehow. Okay, like right here. Yeah, so the Discord chat mod was literally the easiest one to update, as all I had to do was update the figure out updating the Java version, and then it just worked. Like, I don't know how that happened. But yeah, so that was awfully convenient. Alright, no, I need to go into it, not out of it. I need to go one block further that way, and then that is the corner. Alright, there's the corner, guys. Alright, let's place down the schematic. Alright, perfect. Oh, right, we got that row here to do. Alright. But yeah, I think, let's see, what was the hardest mod to update? Oh yeah, the spectator swap mod, this. That mod was also... Oh, hey, there's one of the ones I'm about to talk about. Okay, I guess I'll talk about that one. That was the backup mod here, which you can see running there in chat, was actually the hardest one, just because I hadn't updated it to 20.4, and they made a slight change to text in 1.20.4 with the syntax of it, I believe. So I had to update that. The spec swap mod also wasn't too hard to update. For some reason, when I ran the command to update, or because when you're doing modding and stuff, at least Fabric has a source remapping program that you can run, and it's best practice to do it. So I did it, and for some reason, it did something really, really dumb. When on the spectator swapping mod, it unmapped one of the functions. I say unmapped because it was working perfectly fine, but it was like player.getWorld, I think, was the method that it unmapped, which I believe it's still the same as well, or at least the decompiled name is still the same. But it decided to unmap that to the obfuscated version of it for some reason, which was really confusing because I then had to go after that, I had to then go back in and manually retype everywhere that I used that, the actually correct, I think it was only one or two places as well. I had to go type the correct get world and for whatever it did, like player underscore E37D8 or whatever the hell it was. That was the thing. But overall, my mods weren't too hard to update. But that's, mind you, because I haven't done anything too technical with in-game interactions, like no NBT data, item components, or anything like that has been touched by my mods. The thing that ends up usually getting me is anything that they change with regards to text or chat. But they haven't changed anything with that, surprisingly. With all the technical and game-breaking changes, or mod-breaking changes that they've been making to stuff like data packs, for somehow one of the things they didn't change was text, which is great, actually. Now, one of the things that I do have to look into, though, is the new transfer packets that they have. That they've had. Basically, what these are intended to be is a vanilla version of the multi-server hub networks that exist out there, so like Hypixel and whatnot. Because you're connecting to all sorts of different servers in there, but that's not like an in-game function that's doing that. They've somehow figured out a way to force your client to change which server it's connected to. No idea how that happened. But Bedrock has had a command for a while now. I think it's called WS Server, or W Server, or something like that. That allows you to switch or automatically get switched to a different server and IP address. I think that's probably been used by the hub networks on Bedrock for a while now. But Java hasn't had an equivalent to that until now, that is. Where now Java Edition has an equivalent. I think in vanilla there's just the chat command /transfer. But obviously you can build data pack. Now obviously that's for vanilla usage, so I mean no use implementing this thing if the game itself isn't going to use this. So if you for some strange and incomprehensible reason were trying to run a hub network based server using only vanilla game things, which is just a bad idea for many, many reasons. But if for some reason you were doing that, you could theoretically do all this cross-server management with data packs and command blocks, which would be an interesting thing to see, but it would be so insecure and so vulnerable to just general game hacking. I don't know, maybe you could find a way to around that using data packs. But still, it's generally a bad idea to do something like that, so don't. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't do that. It's a bad idea, but would be interesting. But yeah, the more interesting application, this is mods and plugins, which can now, because this is a feature of the game, actually make use of this to automated via the code send one of these things to a client, and I do want to look into that at some point in the future. How do I send one of these to a client? And can I make a mod that allows me to to add a command to the game that's going to be /go to or something like that, and then it's just going to have a pre-populated list of server names that you could go to, which is you know, edited in a config file. So that way I could quickly swap between the survival and creative server, for instance, without needing to actually log off, which might help with account invalidation. But here's this thing. But then there's another thing that I realized in doing that, where I have no clue if there, because actually one of the things that you apparently have to do to get this to work is you have to change a property, change a setting in server.properties, which is like allow transfers or whatever, in order to be able to actually connect to a server properly. Which makes me think that when you reconnect to a server, it may not re-authenticate you. Actually, I'm going to hold the map in my offhand here so we can see what we're doing. Okay. Yeah, it may not re-authenticate you with the Mojang's authentication servers, which is bad if it is the case, because then if you set up a transfer system between servers, if you set up a transfer system between servers and it's whoops. Yeah, if you set up a transfer system, or if you just have allow transfers set to on in your server properties and someone knows what your server's IP address is, then they could just transfer directly on into your server from their server, bypassing potentially any authentication or whitelist checks, which could be really, really bad if that's how they've implemented it. I hope they'd implement it to actually still require a valid authenticated thing. But then that would also kind of fly in the face of my, I can just quickly hop between servers bypassing the authentication check because this server's already done it. But then again, I guess that falls back to the insecurity thing where it's just like, okay, but then you gotta trust that that other server, which we don't know if we can trust it, by the way, has actually properly verified the authentication instead of just saying, yeah, you're verified. Because, you know, Minecraft is a pretty open game, all things considered. And people can modify the client, their own clients and servers to do whatever they want, even just pretend that they are verified. That's why the server has to do the authentication, and the server has to communicate with the authentication servers, and not just your client, because the server needs to verify that your client is telling the truth, that yes, you are who you are. So the server has to contact the, your server has to contact Mojang's authentication servers to do that. Likewise, it couldn't trust that the server that you're coming from is going to be telling the truth about whether or not it actually vetted you as being who you are, because you could just modify the server that you're coming from just to always say, yes, they are who they are. They did validly authenticate. And can of worms there. But yeah, I think that Mojang has probably done their work correctly, and transfer packets won't allow people to just impersonate other people easily through microservice. But if they haven't, then that's really a big flaw that they really should patch as soon as possible. I mean, I guess you can turn transfer packets off, so it's not a big thing. So it's not a big deal, but still. Also though, actually, I suppose because the way transfer packets work, it's, you know, the server that you're going to will know that you've transferred in from another server. You could probably use that information somehow. Actually, the way I'm thinking of using it is that it's kind of like for a hub network, where when a player joins the game, you check if it joined from a transfer packet or not. And if it didn't join from a transfer packet, then it kicks them because they're not supposed to be there. That'd be how I do it anyway. Which would theoretically allow you to have as many servers completely unwhitelist protected on the internet as you want. Well, that's not necessarily the case. But anyhow, it allows you to have as many servers as you want out on the internet, and just like, I gotta make sure I keep going up on the schematic here. And then just be like, okay, and now they can only be got to by my service. Obviously, the probably best way you can verify that you're actually being transferred from the right place is have like an internal networking. I mean, you're making the mods or plugins or whatever, so just have all them internally connected with like TCP sockets or something like that. Or just like, I guess, a global ledger of players that are being transferred and to what server they're being transferred to. That way you can just, when a server joins with it, or when a player joins with a transfer packet, the server can then go look at the transfer ledger and make sure that the player was being transferred between the internal servers and they ended up in the right place. If they didn't end up in the right place for some reason, how the hell did that happen? But it'll, I guess just send another transfer packet over and send them to the correct location. But if they did end up in the right, but if they just aren't on the ledger at all for recent transfers, then they just get kicked. Invalid transfer or something like that is, or you can't join this server being said. Obviously, you'd probably want to check if it's like the server admins directly joining the server, because obviously, if you're a server administrator who's moderating the game, yeah, you're probably going to need to have the ability to just straight up join any server for any reason. It'll probably hide them, but still. Just thinking of all the possibilities. So basically, what I'm thinking of here is just a hub the way that hub networks are kind of set up. Because actually, fun fact, with the way most hub network servers are set up, the server you actually are playing on is not the same as the server you generally join. When you join a server, maybe there's a load balancer that'll choose the initial hub that you went to, but when you actually start playing your mini game or whatever, you're actually on a completely different server that that actually is in offline mode, so it doesn't need to re-verify you with the whitelist or with the authentication server, so you're just transferring. And the way I think they do authentication is because obviously the server does require authentication. Is the initial server with the known IP address that you joined is probably going to do all the authentication, and then it's just going to talk to the servers that it's putting you in and just being like, yes, I'm giving you this player and they are valid. So you could probably exploit some of that. Actually, no, I know there have been exploits for that sort of thing in the past that have caused a bunch of issues with people just like tricking the server into thinking that they're the server owner and then causing havoc. Generally, the plugins they use nowadays are a lot smarter than that, obviously. Oh. Yeah, there's also the recently added negotiating, I think it's called, phase of the server login, which is now where the resource pack stuff is. You're not technically in the world yet when that happens. And servers can do anything they want with you in that state. Like, build a proper queue, for instance, that doesn't require you to be in a completely separate server. If it's like a server that has like a queue to play on. For instance, but I don't know what the extent of things that the server can do with you in that state. Like, can they like put buttons on your screen, be like, do you like to do X? Like, could they give you a survey in that mode, or what? And I know the server can kick you back to that mode at any point in time. So like, if for instance there was automatic server restarts are going on, and you didn't want to have the players all actually just get completely kicked and then have them rejoin, what you could do theoretically is you could send all the players into this negotiating phase, because they can be put into the phase at any point. The vanilla game doesn't do that, but they particularly can. You could kick all the players into that, and then you could restart all the code that has to do with the actual server world handling stuff. And then once the server's finished restarting, and once the rest of the server's finished restarting, reloading, whatever, you could just give dump all the players right back into the actual game. These are just a few ideas that I have. Of course, then there's also that project, that extremely like distributed server Minecraft project that allows like 1,000 people to be playing in the exact same like survival world, but it like has as long as the players are spread out enough, like everyone's on like, different people are running on different servers, or are actually running in different like server instances, and they can be seamlessly transferred between server instances because the world's all like the same and updating and stuff. But as long as they're like as long as they're not too close together, they they'll be processed on separate servers. So like if someone turns on a lag machine in one server, that'll only affect a couple people, but the rest of the people who aren't nearby that lag machine will probably be fine with it. Pretty cool server technology. I need to blow my nose, and I do not currently have an open box of tissues, so give me one moment to grab and open a box of tissues back here. Alright, got the box of tissues. Opening the box. Box open. Nope. Make sure it doesn't fall off the little table here. Woo. Alright then. Just standing off camera here. Ugh. Alright, I am quickly going to run to the bathroom, so I'm going to mute my mic and be right back. Alright, love how my shirt interacts with the green screen. It is not remotely the same color, but with the light, with these lights here, it is, you know, sometimes considered similar. Okay, I am 34 minutes in, and yeah, I'm definitely not finishing this in the stream, just saying. Or am I? No, I'm not. This is a big-ass project, and usually this project takes a hot second here. I could actually have gone and before the stream looked up exactly how long did it take me last time I built this, because, you know, this isn't the first time I'm building the map art of my base. I think it's like the third time, actually. Did I build this in Season 4 or just last season for the first time? I want to say I... Actually, oh god, I don't remember what seasons I've... Okay, I gotta sleep now. I don't remember what seasons I built this thing in so far. Because I know I definitely built it last season. I may have built it in Season 4, but I don't remember where in the world I did build it. I highly doubt I built it in Season 3. Season 3 was kind of a bust in a lot of ways. Oh yeah, also, fun fact, I have now, I guess, surpassed, I want to say every season but Season 1 in the number of episodes that I've built or produced. Which is quite the feat, considering that I've never actually, it's obviously every other season has gotten up to only about this point in terms of episodes, but apart from a couple breaks this season, I've been incredibly consistent with the episodes I've been producing. The only reason why Season 1 was significantly more in terms of episodes, I believe, oh, that's not the block I'm supposed to be using, is because, I was sometimes doing 2 episodes a week in Season 1 because I had that much free time apparently and that much like low standards and ideas for what to do in terms of episodes. Nowadays, I don't have nearly that much free time or ideas in terms of what to do for episodes, but, and I also got other stuff I'm doing, I guess. But back then, that was kind of my life, just like, do that shit. And what's worse is that I really only started making videos in mid-October. Or beginning of October. Mid-October is when the episode 5 went up, so yeah. Mid-ish October. So like the first 3-ish months of the server are basically not really videoed. I mean, there's one video from the first 3-ish months of the server being up. Exactly one on the internet. The other one's lost to history. The other one that was actually ever uploaded that was originally attempted was lost to history. So yeah, that's fun. Also, there was, which season was it? I think it's season 4. The playlist to it or something like that. Or was it like season 3? I don't know. One of the seasons. I was recently looking at the playlist. It said it had like one more video than I was actually able to see within the playlist. And I think that's because it was sometime season 3 or later, because it was on this channel. But I realized the reason why is because apparently I deleted a video in the playlist, or I'd uploaded a video, added it to the playlist, and then canceled the upload or something like that before it actually was finished, because I think I uploaded the wrong. Oh no, I don't remember it. It was season 4, and I think the thing is when I was trying to upload the Lost episode, which is a thing only accessible from the playlist, by the way. I think I accidentally re-uploaded like one of the episodes neighboring it, and I was like, oh crap, so I deleted that, and I think I'd already added it to the playlist, and then put down and then actually uploaded the proper video. That's probably what it was. But yeah, I fixed that. Here, I'm just gonna run this thing all the way up. Kind of give us an idea of how far we have to go. There we go. There's the top. And also, so I don't forget to move it up anymore. There's only a couple places where we have to go down, and I don't think this is one of those rows. But yeah, I think I briefly mentioned earlier, weather. Been a bit crazy recently. Was wet for a while, and now it's very, very dry. The temperature has been swinging up and down and up and down, and as a result, the trees haven't started to really get leaves. I think they're just starting to bud their leaves now. But yeah, but the constant thermal cycling has definitely fucked with a lot of plants. The grass is finally getting cut. I don't know if it's been cut around where I'm staying at the moment, but around other areas on campus it's been cut. But yeah. So, oh yeah, in addition to so in the final weeks of classes, you know, things are happening, stuff goes on. Talk about like some of the final stuff I've had to deal with in my classes. Actually, it hasn't been too much. So for one class, which actually decided to do its final this week instead of in finals week, it was weird because we, what did we do? We actually covered new content that was on the test, later in the week, early in the week, obviously. That was fun, but the test that we ended up getting was stupid easy. Like, I was thinking, okay, I barely learned any of this crap. This test is going to be super hard because he was just throwing a bunch of facts at us, basically. Test was really easy, really quick. Heck, a bunch of people were done before some people had even shown up to class, so that was interesting. Now then there's like the other class I have in exactly the same room. The one with the nut job professor. We didn't have the test this week. That's actually going to be during finals week, which is a really annoying time. But anyhow, I don't know what is necessarily going to be on that test, but we didn't really learn anything this week anyway. I mean, maybe he was talking about the Linux file system for a while. But we didn't learn anything related to the course this week. I learned, however, that he has every port on his home network open and forwarded to his server. So that's a real, and I verified that fact. Very, very secure he is. Very, very, very secure. I cannot believe how secure that man is. And here he is complaining about all the bots trying to hack into his server via, or trying to log in as root via his SSH port. Sir, I do not think that is the problem. Not at all. It's probably a vulnerability that's easy to exploit on his machine anyway. Not that I have done so, but, yeah. Boop, boop, boop. He's also kind of just been around since the dawn of time, though, so, like, you know, it's not his fault. He's old. Like, I believe the year he started teaching here was, like, similar to the year that the internet started to, like, become, like, a thing that was more widely used in colleges around the country. That's how old he is. He predates Linux as an operating system. At this school, mind you. Not just because he's that old, but because his involvement at this school is older, has been longer than the Linux operating system has been around. And the fact is, I think he'd probably worship the ground that Linus Torvalds walks on, so that's fun. You get people like that, though, sometimes. Also, something that I don't want to talk about. Something that I've been thinking about recently is that, I don't know why, but it feels like recently I've been hearing it from a lot of sources who are trying to, like, they're trying to make me feel bad or shameful for using Windows as my primary operating system. It's like, oh, Windows is terrible, Windows is bad, closed source, blah, blah, you shouldn't use this. It's like, well, why? Like, okay, you don't like the operating system, that's fine, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing. Just because you aren't as good at using it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. Just because I'm bad at using Linux doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. I mean, I can see its applications, especially in, you know, data center being free. I can see that. Mac OS, I could see how it's a little bit more user-friendly for the computer noob, but once you actually start trying to use a computer like a pro, get rid of Mac OS. It is horrible, terrible. Apple hates literally everyone and everything. Even if you're paying them, they hate you for some reason. And I don't understand it. Developers, they say fuck you. Their users, they say fuck you. The government, obviously fuck you. I just don't understand Apple. But yeah, I mean, I could see sometimes the appeal of macOS, but macOS is otherwise just horrible, horrible, horrible. In a lot of ways. I mean, yeah, it's maybe not spying on... No, let's be real. macOS is spying on you. Just Apple's the one doing the spying and nobody else. I mean, yes, you could say at least it doesn't have operating system level ads like Windows is maybe gonna have soon. Which, you know, I'll give it to you. That is terrible. But still, I shouldn't feel shamed for using the world's most popular desktop computing operating system. And also, other people shouldn't discount that it's a thing and it's horrible and no one should ever use it. Because one, there's a lot of problems with Linux. macOS is too expensive and not really compatible with a lot of things. Like, compiled your program... Wait, you compiled your program for macOS 2 years ago? What are you, an idiot? You wanted to run it today? What? Also, I think that same nutjob professor doesn't exactly understand what Microsoft means by we are always going to be backwards compatible, because he thinks, oh, a program wrote in 10 years ago, that probably won't run. I mean, maybe that's the case on Linux or Mac OS. But on Windows, you can still run apps that were written for Windows XP pretty well on a mod. As long as the app was written pretty well for Windows XP, it will probably still run on modern 64-bit versions of Windows, as long as it's a 32-bit application, obviously. Because modern versions of Windows still have the Windows XP compatibility mode built in. And anything, especially if it's like x64, going back to Vista is automatically compatible for the most part, unless it uses operating system unless it does something that was specific to like the version of Windows it was originally intended for, or something specific to the Windows API that's kind of changed. Unless it does any of that, it's still gonna work on modern Windows. That is something that you obviously can't say for macOS. We're 2 versions old. What are you, a dinosaur? No one runs that shit anymore. And Linux, which, I mean, it varies. Sometimes a Linux application will just run. But I've often had situations where, not necessarily often, but in my experience using Linux, I've had experiences where, like, the latest version of the drivers that I could find for the specific old crappy laptop that I was trying to run stuff on was 4 years old and didn't work with the modern version of Ubuntu that I was trying to run on it. Like, I think it was in 2020, I believe. Or 2021, something like that. And like 2016 was the last time like AMD released drivers for this thing. You'd imagine, oh, it'll probably still work. No, it just doesn't work. It refuses to install, and now it's bricked the installation process. So if you try to install anything now, it fails. And what's worse is now the computer just decides randomly to stop processing inputs. Like, at all. Like, audio still works. Somehow audio works. Actually, I don't think the laptop speakers work, but I'm not too surprised on that. But if you plug in an external audio device, that works. It'll still update the screen, but you just can't interact with it in literally any way. That's an annoyance of that computer. To be fair, I haven't had too many issues with the server. But I have had some issues, like when the hard drive that we used to use to store the backups of the survival server here, when that died, it caused the OS to first act weird, and then when I rebooted it, caused it to fail to boot. Because apparently, Linux is pretty dumb when it comes to mounting drives on startup. If it can't mount it, it will just quit and say, nope, I can't do it. No, I'm not doing this. It's not there. I'm not doing this. Instead of just like throwing an error and not mounting it, like you really could do, instead of just like maybe popping up an alert on startup saying failed to mount drive or whatever, it'll just refuse to boot. Who thought that was a good idea? Windows comparatively is actually better. It'll just boot without mounting the drive. Oh my god. Who knew that Windows actually did the common sense thing there? I mean, I will admit, there are some things in Windows that seem like a little bit less common sense and a little less pro-developer or whatever. But when you look at it, Windows, when you look at the history, it actually makes sense why it is the way. Because Microsoft's absurd commitment to backwards compatibility. Still can't name a file com, by the way. That is an example of extreme backwards compatibility. But the reason why you can't go backwards, or the reason why or Windows does things certain ways, is because Windows was originally based on, Windows was originally an application running on top of DOS, which was the disk operating system, which Microsoft purchased off of someone else, and then was selling back in the 80s and early 90s as a commercial product, and that took off on home computers. So it makes sense they would continue building on that for compatibility's sake, so that software would still work. Because in the past, in the 90s, the thing that doomed various computer platforms moving forwards was the compatibility and ability to run software mindsets. For instance, Commodore is a very good example of this, because obviously they had the famous Commodore 64. Few people know about the Commodore 128, which is in fact an actual real computer that was better than it in every way. But the Commodore 128 had two key problems. One was the backwards compatibility with the Commodore 64, which you wouldn't think would be a downside. But the reason why it was is because people who were writing software at the time would try to target the widest range of audiences that they could. So, in fact, that would mean just writing everything for the C64, as the 128 can also do that. So, we'll just target the widest array of compatible devices possible. And then the second part was because of that, no one wanted, and because of that, people didn't have a reason to buy the 128 because there's no software that they could realistically run on it that they couldn't already run. Or if there was, it was very little, very expensive, all that sort of stuff, which basically Doom Loop killed the whole concept. But the thing is, the Commodore 128 wasn't actually a bad computer. It was actually great. It was better than the C64 in a lot of ways by having like double the RAM or something like that. and a whole bunch of extra features like the ability, like native support for using 2 monitors. Something that, because they never really had much adoption, people basically never did. But you could use both display outputs on it simultaneously, and a few programs, not many, but a few programs actually did make use of that to do some pretty cool stuff. But anyhow, because of stuff like that, computer or software and computer manufacturers were eager to make everything intercompatible as fuck, so that people would actually potentially upgrade and continue writing software for the platform, so that, you know, it didn't end up in a Commodore situation there. So obviously, with DOS and later Windows, backwards compatibility with the previous version, so that way all the software you knew and loved that you kept using would still work, is very important. And that's partially what sold the platform to home and business users. Unix, you know, later Linux, comes from a completely separate angle. They were obviously in the data center, which isn't the platform that everyone was on, right? Everyone was on their like obviously Unix and Linux were meant to run on the mainframe, big old multi-use servers, not the on-your-desk computer that we all know as a computer nowadays. So they were fundamentally different in what they were being used for. And because the ability to just have a computer in your home and use it locally became significantly more ubiquitous, Windows, in effect, ended up winning out in terms of, like... Well, okay, it wasn't necessarily that Windows was in every way a better product than anything that was out there. OS2 was in some ways a better product than Windows. It was actually co-developed by Microsoft in the early years. But due to contracts and marketing, Windows ended up, you know, being the one that actually took off. But yeah, that's, hey, we did one strip. That's great. That's great. It only took us like 53 minutes to do that. Yay! We get to do 2 strips at once for a little while here, though, so that'll be great. Oh, yeah. Oh. Yeah, there's nothing solid there, is there? Oh, that's a thing. But yeah, if you ever wonder why Windows is the way it is, it's because, well, Windows was successful a lot well before any of this other stuff became widespread and commonplace. In fact, Windows was widespread and commonplace well before this other stuff was widespread and commonplace. Yeah, it existed, but it wasn't really widespread and everyone was interacting with it. Only like turbo nerds and academics were interacting with computers and Unix-based operating systems well back in the day before Windows came out. Now, mind you, there was also things like the Macintosh, but no one really bought that because that was overpriced junk even back then. Man, I have a lot of opinions on this stuff, don't I? And I'm talking to no one. Literally no one. I assume, unless my YouTube on my phone is lying to me about the number of viewers, I'm talking to no one right now. Comment down below, or in chat if you're actually here, if you are in fact here and listening to me ramble to myself, or if I'm doing this for no apparent reason. Getting out more redstone. Actually, I'm going to empty this box of redstone first. Whoop. But yeah, I've encountered... Well, actually, the one course that I'm taking right now with the Nutjob Professor is basically a lot of stuff in the course has been leaned toward Linux-focused programming, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But the annoying thing is there's just not an easy equivalent for some of that shit on Windows, which is really annoying because that's the platform that I am you know, running all my shit on, because a lot of shit doesn't work on Linux or is just a pain, and I kind of want it to mostly just work. I mean, I guess another reason why you'd want to use macOS, again, if you're not a serious user, is you just like the way it looks, because it looks nice. But sure, I'll get it. I'll give Apple that. They have put a lot of effort into the way the OS looks, and Windows is starting to try to do that with their newer versions, like actually put a lot of effort into the user design, because, you know, original Windows, like Windows 95, was not really intended to look... Oh, Windows 1 to 3. Really, no. It's really not in this situation. But, like, Windows 95, really not intended to necessarily have the best looks. It was more utilitarian and, like, this is what the cold and uncaring computer are. You know, it's simple, but, you know, effective. I mean, nowadays people are like, well, why can't it be both? And, you know, there's not really a good reason why it can't be both now, especially with how much money Microsoft has. But with Windows 95, it kind of makes sense. It wasn't, you know, a very nice-looking Mac OS or anything, but it was better than a command line, so, like, there's that. Oh yeah, I mean, another complaint that I just have about Linux is a lot of stuff in Linux is just way too dependent on the command line and not the graphical systems that exist to do exactly the same thing, because graphical systems in a lot of cases are going to be much faster or easier to use for the average person to do stuff rather than using a random command line like sysset rd underscore 32 dash my settings values setting 7 equals 36 or whatever. Like, what the hell even is all that? When you could just open a window for settings and just like click on the and just move the slider for the value to 36 and it'd be like, ah, cool. Then it just works. I will say though, the Ubuntu time zone picker, very, very cool. I've heard stories of Windows having a time zone picker that is similar to that, but I've never really seen it. But just being able to like click on the actual time zone for where you are in the world, very, very easy. Yeah, I've heard stories about Windows having a very similar type time zone picker, which is very intriguing to me because I don't ever recall there being a time zone picker like that in Windows. All I recall ever seeing in Windows is just a drop-down menu in settings where it's like, okay, and here are the list of time zones and their approximate UTC conversions. Complete side note, did you know that they're trying to put a time zone on the moon now? And in classic time zone fashion, the abbreviation is going to be LCT for Coordinated Lunar Time. Because that's how we name time zones on this planet. Even in English, I mean, the reason why, you know, apparently the reason why it's named the way it is because England and France were arguing, they couldn't agree. And so neither language has it correctly grammatically acronymed. In English, it's called Coordinated Universal Time, but the acronym is UTC. Or Coordinated Universal Time. UTC. Yeah, I think UTC is what it is. I'm confused now. But anyhow, the acronym sucks in English, and in French, where it's also in a different order, is also incorrect. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's UCT, UCT. The thing is, in English, you just swap around the words. Universal Coordinated Time is still valid. That's what I've thought it is for a while, until I heard about the weird way in which time zones are named. Universal Coordinated Time just sounds better, in my opinion. Especially considering that's how the acronym is. We should just call it that, because that's effectively what it is. And the acronym just makes fucking sense. But apparently making sense is not necessarily something that ever has to happen in the scientific community or anything like that. No. Oh. Beep, boop, beep, no. So anyhow. Anyhow, yes, the stuff's happening. Oh yes, I actually think I know what I'm actually going to be doing on Sunday for the live stream that I'm doing for development of Skinny Man. And I can tell you within the next week or so, I think I'm going to do a lot more in terms of Skinny Man development. Because we're getting into May, we're going to start getting into May, and when we get into May, I'm realizing I'm going to need to actually get building the levels and shit. Which is kind of important in order to do a late May release of this major update that I'm planning here. After that, I might start doing like a YouTube video series. I don't know how like actually frequent it's going to be, but I'll probably start doing a YouTube video series about the development of the game. Kind of in an attempt to just get more views on the thing, but hey. Currently I'm doing that sort of thing with live streams. But that doesn't but obviously that's not going to continue much past Sunday. Because reasons. Mostly because streaming at home is kind of a pain in the ass. Because I have to set the whole thing up, and then I have to worry about people disturbing me. You know, coming down towards my setup is, you know, just rummaging around on shelves, or actually, heaven forbid, trying to talk to me. That is the worst one. Trying to talk to me? How dare you? There's also the fact of the home internet being much slower, and I have to share the bandwidth with Spectrum's upload speeds being stupidly slow, and I have to share the upload speed with the server and anyone else who happens to be trying to use the internet at that time. I mean, for the most part... Oh yeah, we're doing 3 wide here for a while. Ooh. For the most part, it is Spectrum's fault, though, because with their standard plan, because now that broadband facts are a thing, I actually know what speed Spectrum's internet packages are. Their standard plan, which is the one that I'm on, has 10 megabits of upload. And yes, I can confirm that is the fact. Their 500 megabyte plan, which I actually didn't know about, because they don't really advertise it all that much, has 20 megabytes of upload, which is double, which is better. Still not great, but better. Their gigabit plan, which is, you know, gigabit plan, which has roughly, last I heard, I don't actually remember what the actual upload number was set to on that. If it was actually 1,000 or if it was the 900 some that I'd seen in their commercials at one point. Has 35 megabytes of upload, which I think I've heard before, but it's good to see that it's a jump of 15 instead of 10 from the previous plan. But the weird thing is, what I was looking at is that the price of the 500 versus gig plans is literally only a $10 difference per month. But with or without the promotion, it doesn't matter. The difference is $10. So I mean, if you don't if you want to save $10 on the gig plan, I guess you have the 5 meg plan. But if you don't think $10, I mean, obviously it adds up. But if you think you can cope with $10 extra per month, you get a significant increase in speed in both directions. Especially considering the fact that what the fuck am I thinking of? Double direction increases in speed especially considering that it's a gigantic jump from the standard plan to the 500 plan. Yeah. It's actually a lot of the things that I have to deal with now regarding to the server stuff is really bandwidth limitations on the upload side of things, because like I do want to have a higher render distance on the server. I know that'll fuck with the mob caps in a lot of ways, which I'm not excited for, but I want to do higher render distances, but the actual server upload speed is kind of limiting in that respect, because, you know, actually sending the chunks to people is the most bandwidth intensive part of hosting a Minecraft server, obviously. And yeah, more chunks is even one more in the chunk size is significantly more bandwidth, exponentially more, you might say, that I have to end up sending out. So that's why I don't do that. I mean, theoretically, I think the server has enough processing power to cope with increasing the simulation distance, but I really don't see a point to that at this point, because you can't see it. Not really a point to increasing that. And also, when more people get online, it kind of starts to slow down. What would actually be cool is if I could get a mod to dynamically change the simulation distance based off of how well the server's performing. So, like, right now, I'm the only one online. The MSPT is, like, 3. We could have, like, 20 chunk simulation distance, still fine. But if there's, like, 4 people online and it's, like, starting to struggle a bit, you know, getting up there in MSPT, we can, start decreasing it until it's, like, at, like, 8 chunks or whatever for the simulation distance, which is a lot less than it's at 10 right now, I think. Which is less than it is right now, so... These are just ideas that I have. I mean, another idea that I have is I could theoretically allow the server members to download the most recent server backup, but the problem with that is the backups are like a gigabyte size. I mean, I could compress it, which would help a bit, to be fair, but it'd still be like a gigabyte of data to download, which with the current upload speeds is slow as fuck. So, I mean, I could engineer my way around that a bit by, you know, first of all, only allowing one person to be downloading at a time. That'll save a lot of bandwidth. Or I could try doing a thing with, like, multicasting, where I would be like, okay, I will multicast the file out to everyone, so everyone can download it at exactly the same time. That's a bad idea, but it's theoretically a way that I could do it. The other thing I could do is I could limit the speed at which it gets uploaded to something like 10 to... Well, I could also put additional limits on it, but I could limit it to like 10 megabytes per second in terms of upload. If we had more bandwidth, so you get the maximum 10 megabits per second, which would make it take a while, but it would also potentially, you know, be a lot of bandwidth saved because we don't have to worry about that. I could also just add an option to, like, when I'm live streaming, completely disable the downloading of backups in case one of the members on the server wants to be a dick and just be like, oh, hey, you're live streaming? Well, fuck you, I'm downloading the file. To be fair, I could also fuck with them by just restarting the web server in the middle of their file download, which would also kill it. I've also seen stuff in Google Chrome where if like a download gets interrupted, you can try to resume the download. It usually doesn't work because I don't know how any of that works, but there's a chance it will work. And actually my question for that is like, how does that work? In what way is it telling the server how much of the file it's gotten and where to resume? I mean, usually the links for downloading are kind of temporary anyway, so by the time you get to resuming it, the link's already invalid and it's like, sorry, I don't know what you mean. But I wonder how it would do the download restart stuff. Anyhow. Oh yeah, I guess something that I really that I kind of want to do with my backup mod actually in the future here. I mean, I haven't had time to do it recently, like when I updated to 20.5, but a major feature would be add various forms of compression as ooh, excuse me. Yeah, but an idea would be add various forms of automatic compression to it. So instead of just straight up copying the files, it would compress all the files together when it stores on the disk, which would obviously save disk space and also potentially save the save bandwidth if you're downloading it, which I really should do because we have a ton of backups on the server right now, like probably over 500 gigabytes worth of world backups that we're probably never going to use, to be fair. And I should really just do that. You know, there's a bunch of stuff I gotta do on the server. Anyhow. Anyhow, that's unimportant for this stream. Also gotta, you know, try doing stuff for... Oh yeah, actually, hold on. I just remembered something I wanted to talk about. So, in addition to the whole My Nut Job Professor... There are two sounds being played every time you place one of these. Anyhow, in addition to the whole My Nut Job Professor has every single port on his network opened and forwarded thing that I was talking about earlier, I also just remembered this other thing. He was like, oh, because he was talking about a little bit, because we were talking about TCP and stuff. So he was talking a bit about like the multicasting broadcast protocol because it like saves network bandwidth or whatever. Because you're just doing one broadcast and it sends it to multiple IP addresses at once, which is admittedly pretty cool technology. It's like, oh, why doesn't like Netflix use this? They would save so much bandwidth if they did that. And I can tell you the reason why. It's because of this little known thing called on-demand. They're not running a TV station that's just always broadcasting one single live feed. They're broadcasting a video, which, by the way, is actually chunked up into smaller files, so that would also be kind of annoying to deal with. But also, not everyone's watching the video at the exact same place. It's on demand. You can start it whenever you want. You can pause it whenever you want. You can scrub through it at any point in time to any arbitrary place you want. That's how on-demand video service works. That's why they can't use multicasting. Now, if you were someone like Twitch, and Twitch actually might do this, I'm not entirely sure, you know, for live stream broadcasts, multicasting makes a lot of sense, actually, because everyone's watching this singular stream at the singular live moment in time. So obviously you're going to want to, you know, save as much bandwidth as possible by only sending out one stream to as many different IP addresses at the same time as possible. And I think the LTT's Flowplane system for live streaming also, I think, might use that system. But I think I can confidently say that YouTube does not use that for the live streaming system, because they just use the exact same system that their video streaming technology uses, just with live content instead of video content, which on YouTube's end actually kind of makes sense, because they already have this extremely efficient global network of video distribution that works really, really well. So why not do the same thing with videos, or with live streams, which is actually, in my opinion, better for YouTube anyway, because it means the quality of the playback stream is actually better. Because, see, one of my issues with Twitch is that if you're on mobile data, it's very inconsistent whether you're actually going to be receiving the stream. And it bugs me to no end that that is the case, and that YouTube is so much better on this. And maybe it's because of how their multicasting system works, because YouTube is just using their awesome video delivery system that they're using for everything else anyway. Just with live content, obviously, instead of pre-recorded video content. I mean, yes, the delay is higher on YouTube, as it has to, like, live transcode the video into all the different sizes. And that takes a bit of processing time. It also then has to take the incoming video, live stream, so like what you're watching now, group it into different file chunks that it can then send out. Now, mind you, it doesn't necessarily do this all the time, and does stuff, and also buffer and save all the entire stream so that it can be used later. So the instant DVR on YouTube is also really nice. Let's see, what is it? Oh, but yeah, there's a lot of that goes into that. But also, here's a fun fact. There is a bit of delay on YouTube, but that's also partially because YouTube is buffering an amount of the stream ahead of you, so that if you do run into a slightly spottier, inconsistent connections where you have really fast network speed and then maybe really slow or dropping network connection frequently, it can just buffer a bunch of the stream in front of what you're currently watching to make the playback experience much smoother for you, which is actually appreciated. But that buffer still exists on your device, and there is actually a way you can try to eat through it as much as possible to be as up to date as possible. Just go into the video playback settings on a live stream, by the way, and select a faster option, so like 2x. And you'll play through the buffer, and then once it reaches the end of the buffer, it'll just go back to 1x speed. Maybe it'll buffer for a moment so that it actually, because it realizes it actually doesn't have any video that it can show you, but yeah. Ooh, that was timing there. Yeah, these are just some fun facts about YouTube live streaming. Or just live streaming in general. Hold up. Anyhow, sorry for the interruption, people. I have no idea what I was just talking about, so anyhow, it doesn't matter. I am, let's see, 1 hour, 60 minutes in. We are making decent progress with building my face here. In fact, I'd say we're probably approaching 1/4 completion, which is pretty good. Heck, I think at the top of this mycelium bit here, we are close. Yeah, we'll probably be around once we get mycelium. Once we get to the end of this nylium bit here, I think we will have completed approximately 1/4 of the entire face there. Because, of course, that's... Because, yeah, I think with the number of things that we've done, yeah, that's approximately 1/4. Anyhow. Alright. Trying to think of things to say. Okay, it's becoming nighttime again. Oh yeah, so I believe today the announcement dropped that 1.21, I believe, will be named the Tricky Trials Update, which in my opinion, I mean, people are saying it's a decent name for the update, you know, actually accurately describes it. But for me, I'm like, this sounds far too similar to the name of the previous update, 1.20, with the Trails and Tales. Still starts with 2 T's. I'm sensing a theme here, but like, I don't know, it just sounds too similar to me. To like the bad vibes of 1.20. Oh, okay. Now we've done 1/4. Alright. Or thereabouts. Actually, I think it's over 1/4 now. Yeah, I think it's over 1/4 now, actually. So, up this way we go. And the rate of progress has suddenly slowed down. People go speeding by. Ooh. They've been doing like... So there's been construction happening around campus recently, as you expect, you know, springtime's construction starting up and stuff. Okay, so I've had to like deal with that while I'm sitting here. Mind you, not really while I'm asleep all that much. Construction vehicle, like heavy duty machinery and vehicles being trucked by on the road here, which is, you know, which makes it kind of loud. Which isn't normal, because anytime, and I can tell you that generally noise isn't normal, because anytime an emergency vehicle has to come onto campus for any reason, whether it's police, ambulance, or fire department, because I've seen all 3 driving around campus with their lights on before, they just have the lights on, no sound, which is interesting. But yeah, so I say all this to say, yeah, these trucks are loud. But it also reminds me of the truck I saw today. This giant semi-truck with a real long flatbed low-loader trailer towing behind it that has a singular scissor lift strapped down to it. That's it, just a singular scissor lift on the giant trailer. It's not even a big scissor lift, it's kind of an average-sized scissor lift. It's like, really? You needed that to transport that? Could that not have just like gone in a pickup truck or something like that? Anyhow, so I found that vaguely amusing when I saw that go by today. But yeah, they've done a bunch of stuff around campus here. Okay, I really should... I'm not used to how short this is, or how short the area I'm moving in here is. I was used to the triple long section for a while there. Yeah, the rest of this one up is single long, because, yeah, that's how this works. Yeah. But yeah, okay, Oh yeah, I should really determine what I'm going to put as the threshold for stopping the stream today. I think what I should do is I should just get half of this done. And I'll call the stream there. Because obviously the WAN show has already happened today. So I can't use that as an end marker. Because it's been very handy as an end marker. But unfortunately I don't get that today. Boo. Boo, boo. Actually, I don't know why they even did it early today, because I mean at one point they were teasing, I think they teased it at one point, it's like, oh yeah, we'll talk about why we're like at this weird time later in the show, but then they never actually talked about it. Like I gathered that Linus was like not at the studio and was doing something and been up for a while, was going to some sort of party, but he never explained why they were doing the show now. Maybe it's just because he has a party to go to and he has to get to sleep, but still didn't explain why they were really doing the show now. But yeah, there's talk about the contents of the show. Ah, God, I don't remember much stuff. I do. Well, okay, I remember there's the ridiculously expensive game expansion that they were talking about, how stupid it is and how no one should ever buy it. Like seriously, don't buy it. Don't even play the game at this point. Send a message. Let's see. They also briefly talked about the restoring of net neutrality, which actually, I didn't actually realize they had actually successfully repealed and left it repealed. I thought that the actual pressure campaign about net neutrality had actually worked. And that they decided to actually leave it in place, considering I hadn't seen any anti-net neutrality stuff go into place. But apparently it had actually been repealed. So yay, that's coming back. Also, the people who voted against it, they're definitely being paid off by the telecoms industries to leave it off. I 100% believe that to be the case. And I think that the Department of Justice should start investigating them for corruption. Because at this point, I really think that that's what's going on there. Oh yeah, there was also the other three-letter agency. The FTC did a really cool thing this week where they declared most non-compete agreements illegal. Which is a real big win for the workers, who no longer have to be worried about basically about the fact that they're about killing their career because the company they work for decided to non-compete them. Because basically the way it worked before is like a condition to work at this place was that you have to sign a non-compete agreement, which basically says, which could say that, oh yeah, once you're no longer working for us, you can't work for another company in this industry for 5 years. Which, if that's like the hyper-specialized industry you work in, that basically kills your career. Which is kind of bullshit, and really bad for the economy in general. But yeah, that sort of thing has now been declared against the law. Obviously, there's going to be stuff going on about that. But, you know, I like that. I like that they're, you know, fixing this sort of stuff. I mean, if it's like an executive non-compete, like, oh, like, you were in charge of this company, you can't start or work for another company that does exactly the same thing as we've done here for the next 5 years, or we bought out your company and we don't want you to just quit and start a new company, so you can't start a new company in this area that does exactly the same thing for 7 years. That is a type of non-compete that I think I am okay with, because that type of non-compete is like, okay, yeah, that's a little bit more common sense. That's negotiated, that's contractual, and really doesn't necessarily harm anyone, because anyhow, they're making a fuck ton of money out of this instead of just living expenses. Compare that with the type of non-compete, or and then what generally happens in those situations, anyhow, is that whoever bought the company is going to end up running it into the ground, and once the non-compete's up, hey, they're back in, the old company's back in business, boys! Anyhow. We have fun here, I guess. Bum 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 bum. Oh, crap. Let's see. Okay, so here's something that I think I might wanna that I can briefly talk about here is the very terrible state of controller input libraries for the programming language Java. There's two main ones that I know about, and neither of them are really and both of them kind of have issues. In some situations, they're probably fine. So the first one that I'm talking about is the one that I've basically really got to actually work, which is JInput, which is just, a controller input library. It works pretty well. I mean, on Windows, you actually have to have a graphical environment to use it. On other operating systems, not so much. The main issue with the JInput is besides the fact that it hasn't been maintained in 5 years, is that it does not have support for hot swapping peripherals. So if you plug in or disconnect a peripheral while it is in use, it actually just does not work. It'll start throwing some sort of cryptic error while you're using it. Or if you unplug something, it'll start throwing a cryptic error that it can't read it. And if you plug something in, just straight up won't detect it. So that's kind of those are the two major issues with it. Otherwise, it works pretty well if you are prepared to code for the multi-platform recognition of controllers. The other issue with the other one that I really know about is called LWJGL, which is a lightweight Java game library, which is surprisingly not lightweight. Like it's called lightweight. It is incredibly heavyweight. It has a lot of different modules that do a lot of different things. But anyhow, one of those modules actually contains the okay, it's becoming nighttime here. One of those modules does actually contain a controller configuration API, but from what I can which is adapted from the C library version of it. But from what I can tell, besides the shitty documentation on their webpage, what I can tell is that it basically requires you to create any sort of graphical environment through LWJGL instead of just being able to just bundle this on to any project you're using elsewhere that's using any other sort of UI. Like something, say, using Java 2D or Swing or whatever, or JavaFX even. Which is kind of an issue in my opinion. Now, of course, you can actually... Of course, I think you could also theoretically use the Steam API to use the controllers via Steam. But, that actually requires you to be on a Steam game. And LWJGL also, I believe, has the ability to include the Steam API. It is in no way lightweight. Like, it does so much shit that it's surprisingly call it lightweight at all. They should just call it Java Game Library, because that's basically what it is. I think that's what actually Minecraft uses as well for its OpenGL implementation. But for me, I do like Java stuff in processing, which provides its own OpenGL through JGOL, I believe, which is wait, is that? Oh yeah, Java Open Source Graphics Library. I think that's what it's called, which is one of the one of the ways you can do OpenGL in Java. Obviously, LWJGL is also the other one. But LWJGL, I believe, also has the option for Vulkan, which is interesting. Never touched either of those things, realistically. Well, I mean, okay. I've technically touched OpenGL with my game, but I've never done anything shader-wise, because I can't figure out how to make that work properly with processing. I really need to find whatever the actual default shaders that processing is actually using at all points in time, and just start modifying that. Because, well, currently with my game, the only thing I really want to do is I want to implement proper entity shadows. And that's something I have to do in the shaders, which isn't too big a deal, except for the fact that I have zero fucking clue how to do shit. Well, I can not necessarily entity shadows, just general shadows, I guess, in 3D mode at least, where everything is shadowed. But I, again, have no idea how to write shaders that of any kind that will actually display anything in processing. It's a problem. But you can do some really cool things with just shaders, actually. like I've seen a lot of stuff like, okay, well if you do this in a shader, it's like really stupid fast because obviously what a shader is really just a program that you run on your GPU, usually in the event of outputting something to the screen. Theoretically, there are ways to save information in between pixels or in between frames, but that's generally not what is done. It's mostly instance-based and highly parallelized, because in theory, with a shader, each loop through the program is done for a specific pixel. And as long as that doesn't technically depend on what other pixels around it are actually done, you can highly parallelize this by putting one pixel on one core of the GPU, and if you have a billion cores, I don't know how many cores the GPUs have, but if you have like one pixel per core and you have like a million cores or whatever, you can basically have each core just rendering one pixel for a frame. Some of them will obviously have to do more than one, but whatever ones are done first can tackle the extra pixels. But yeah, for a 1080p frame, you could just have like, if you have enough, GPU cores, you can just have one pixel dedicated to one GPU core and just be like, all right, stupidly fast rendering, go. I mean, obviously, that's not necessarily what it is. The cores, I don't think, are necessarily that numerous, but there are hundreds of thousands on typical GPUs these days. Which does make them extremely good at rasterized rendering. There are other post-processing things that can happen elsewhere in the graphics pipeline, but yeah. And also, that is why generally graphics cards are so good at doing things like crypto mining. Is graphics or a graphics card core is typically, well, I mean, most of the things that happen with shader rendering happen to be highly mathematical operations. Very little branching generally occurs. It's mostly just doing a ton of math to figure stuff out. So you can do basically anything, but it's best for doing math, especially math that can be highly parallelized, which a lot of AI and crypto mining workloads generally can be. So yeah, so that's why GPUs get used for that. Not the way that now, the reason why GPU would be horribly slow for running any general purpose code like an operating system or something, besides the fact that they're generally clocked much lower than CPUs, is because a GPU. Oh fuck! I'm trying to think here. Oh yes. CPU cores have this thing called a branch predictor, which is actually responsible for most of their speed. Basically, the branch predictors are responsible for predicting what instructions might possibly come next in the sequence and pre-computing their values before the actual computation, the normal computation section of the CPU, has a chance to properly decode the instructions in the sequence and actually execute them. This allows your CPU to be significantly faster, and of course when the branch predictors get it wrong, obviously it does actually have to go through all the calculations correctly, which is apparently much slower. But branch prediction, which is, in my opinion, black magic, is the primary way that we get speed on a CPU these days. GPUs do not have those due to the highly linear and non-branching natures of shader code. Because while you can do branches, they're not extremely common. And to be fair, branching is kind of like using an if statement, because when you write an if statement, there's two possible ways for that code to go. You could either go into the yes, this if statement's true, or no, it's not. And obviously the branch predictors are going to try to predict which direction that's going to go and start pre-computing the instructions for that. I don't know. That's what I think branch predictors are doing from what I've heard about them. Again, they're black magic, and I don't know how the hell they work or why they work, but they work, and they're like really, really, really good at their job. And they make CPU go brr, so yeah, anyway, graphics cards don't have that, so they're, relying on the brute force for the amount of cores, and the fact that their programs aren't doing much branching on often. In fact, I mean, you can do it, again, you can do if statements and branching in a GPU code, or in shader code, but it's not necessarily the most recommended thing. If you can find a way to rewrite your shader code that does have various conditions and if statements in it into just being only mathematical expressions, it will probably run faster. And the way you probably do this, a lot of multiplication and division and stuff. Because that's another thing. GPUs probably have really good division implementations that are really fast as well. Because, let's be real, doing all the different multiplications, there's probably also a bunch of division you have to do for a lot of these things. Oh, hello! And welcome to the stream. I'm ranting right now. Well, look at what's up is I'm building my Minecraft skin's face as a map art in Minecraft. But I'm currently ranting or just talking about the way that GPUs work for some reason. But yeah, I mean, the primary way I guess you'd reduce everything that you're doing on the GPU to mathematical expressions would be to be multiplying or dividing stuff by like ones or zeros or stuff like that, to conditionally determine whether most of the operations actually goes through, and at the end you'd have to, I guess, do some actual conditional logic, or I guess just add or multiply together all the different results from all the things you did, which if most things are either ones or if a lot of things turn into 1 or 0 when you've actually done stuff, adding them together, or so if all the false conditions turn out to be a 0, then you could just add everything together at the very end, and that'll determine your result, I guess. I don't know, I'm talking about this in extremely, extremely abstract terms. I have way too many redstone blocks in my inventory right now. I'm talking about this in extremely abstract terms. I kind of know what I'm talking about in my head, but I don't know if other people can really, or if you people out there are really able to piece together what I'm talking about. I don't know, let me know if I'm doing a bad job of explaining the weird thoughts in my head. Woo. See how long have I been live for? 1 hour and 38 minutes. Yay. Ooh, yes. Also this week, TikTok is getting banned. Let's celebrate. Woohoo, it's getting banned. Although it'll be like until January before that actually happens, and they're gonna fight it in court, and I hope they're gonna lose because LOL, funny TikTok getting banned. Is this an overreach of power? Is this an extreme expansion of the government's power? Maybe. I'd hope the precedent that's being set here is that, oh, it's just any non-American app that we can ban. We can't ban your app if it's an American app. But who knows? Who knows what it's actually going to be setting in terms of precedent? Don't understand the definitions of object. What do you mean by definitions of object-oriented programming? Because not entirely sure what you mean by that. So I can kind of explain how. Well, I mean, the biggest thing with object-oriented programming is just kind of like a different way of thinking about your writing the code. Instead of just like writing it all in one long vomit of functions and stuff, you think about it, how can it be like, oh, what were the words that the professor used when he was talking about this stuff? I know one of the words was encapsulation. Abstraction and encapsulation, that's it. So it's thinking of how you can abstract away or make the various parts of the code more abstract and encapsulate other parts of the code to be more isolated and not necessarily exposed or dependent on or directly dependent on things that other parts of the code are doing. Which now that I think about it, it's not a really good way of explaining how that is. But it's I know what I mean, but I realize I did not really explain that last part about encapsulation really well. Basically, what I could understand, but what my professor was meaning about that is like what the just do not directly access variables from other objects. You should always be using methods to access that stuff. Oh. Well, I don't know what book you're using. In terms of TikTok, yeah, it is very possible that Mark Zuckerberg put money on the scales there. I could also imagine Google putting money on the scales there, as they are the biggest competitor to TikTok in terms of actually video streaming, YouTube Shorts and all. Get, for example, wait, what? What do you... I'm not entirely sure what you mean by get. Are you talking about, like, getters and setters type thing, or... it's like a okay, so, again, a bit of clarification would be nice here. Like, are you talking about, like a get method to get a property of a class? Ah, damn it. Because I can just start talking about, like, kind of the theory about why, I guess, you don't want to directly access the variables of a class. I mean, again, it kind of goes back to the idea of encapsulation, but also can deal with a bit of abstraction if you're doing the proper object-oriented stuff. I will say, if it is just a program, if it's a program that you alone are writing and no one else is really going to be ever touching or doing it, especially if it's just like a quick and dirty little program to do stuff. Just understanding the definitions of the book. Well, alright, let's just talk about this. So, if it's just a quick and dirty little program that you're writing, or just a project that you're working on that no one else will ever touch doing stuff, and you know what you're doing, directly accessing the variables of a class is probably fine. But generally, in object-oriented programming, all the variables, fields, properties, whatever you want to call them of a class, should be private, only accessible from within the class, which causes some issues if you're doing inheritance stuff, which I've often had to deal with. But that's the theory of what it is. And so the idea of a get method is that because the data in the class is private and cannot be directly accessed from outside the class by doing just like variable dot like x or whatever, you'll need to use a function like a get x to be able to actually obtain the variable. Now, there are a couple of reasons why this is potentially useful. The first reason is if you use this sort of thing everywhere and you need to modify how the result of x is delivered, that's much easier to do with like the method get x. If you still want to store it internally to the class as just x, but you wanted to have like everywhere else use like half the value of x, get x can just return x divided by 2 instead of just returning x. But I think the place where it really starts to become more useful is in more of like an inheritance type situation where you need to, where a subclass of the class that you're working on might want to redefine what getX actually means. Maybe instead of X, it actually should be returning Y in that situation. Which helps modularize everything with the code that's actually working on. So instead of having to rewrite the code that uses this class elsewhere to, first of all, test if it is this other class, and if it is that other class, get Y instead of X, or you fetch the Y property instead of the X property, you could just always call get X and then just redefine in that one specific class. You could redefine get X to return Y instead of X. At least that's kind of the theory of it. Classes can be an object or certain, or can be object or contain. Okay, so the way that, the actual distinction between classes and objects is you can, for one, kind of think of them as the same thing. A class is an object. But what a more accurate way to say that would be is that a class is the blueprint for an object. In that objects are instances of the class. So the class is kind of the definition and an object is the instance of that definition. That is the Ooh, okay, fun. Marketing emails from YouTube TV, woo. Anyhow, but that is kind of the definition of what a class is. Or that is kind of like what a class is. And a class, and within a class or an object, it can contain any number of references, or actually instances, I guess, of other objects or primitive variables. So like, so a way you can kind of think of a class is kind of like a combination of other things. So, I mean, in the end, I mean, you could think of this more from like a more hard, low-level perspective. In the end, everything you do on a computer is just involving binary. And everything that's represented in a computer is all represented in binary, which is a different system of numbers, which is a different way to represent numbers. So literally everything in a computer comes back to being numbers at some point in time. And what makes a class or your program special is how you interpret those numbers. So what a class effectively allows you to do, it allows you to group numbers together and think of those numbers together as something completely different. So, you know, a class is like a specific collection of numbers where each of those numbers represents something different, and together they represent something else different. Yeah, my reading comprehension is also quite bad. So then we... but yeah, so classes have... so objects can have... So then within an object, like a car, it can contain references to other objects, like door, for instance. So the car can just be made up of other components like doors, wheels, windows, and so the car can have a set of doors, and those doors can be other more complex objects that have stuff like powered windows and locks and all that sort of stuff. And like, again, I guess the idea of object-oriented programming is kind of like the idea of the monkey in the tree. The monkey knows what it can do within the tree, but it can't see out of the tree. You can throw stuff into the tree, the monkey will know what the stuff is, it can do its stuff with it, and then it'll throw it out of the tree. But the monkey has no frame of reference for what exists outside of the tree, and the monkey... And then we can do the quantum... And then we get into quantum mechanics, where the monkey can throw stuff into different, more smaller trees that exist inside of the tree that it's in, and... that also somehow works out in the same way, and then there can be loops where the monkey throws stuff... where the monkey will throw stuff into a tree inside of it, which throws stuff to a different tree, which throws stuff back to the first tree, and like a recursive loop of stuff. Or the monkey... Ooh, that's convenient. And then the monkey, throws stuff to itself. I have to read the book back, but with the amount of things it has in each definition, it ends up making me dizzy and scientific. Yeah, I can often feel that way for textbooks. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense of that. Okay, like I know for when I was in the entry-level computing class they have here at my school, they required us to get a textbook, which I never really used properly much. I think I used it once to reference the way that some sort of syntax was done, but that's about it. They really... Kind of, yeah. And then the thing that you make out of the blueprint is what an object is. Don't get what to use videos because I feel like you don't. Okay. Ah, man. Yeah. Yeah, I got it. Okay. Can I make it up through that hole? Yay, I did it. Okay. Well, okay. The way you learn best, I mean, you can generate real knowledge from videos, because sometimes just hearing someone speak it at you instead of just reading it yourself can actually make you learn it better. Because, having someone speak it to you and reading it will probably make it like, oh, that's what that is, or something like that. Let's see. And also another thing with just generally programming is I generally like the whole aspect of like you get examples and you can just like do and play with the stuff yourself and, you know, screw around with it, break it, fix it, all that sort of stuff. I mean, I'm not really being made dizzy here, but yeah, that can happen. Now, I forget what else I was talking about here. Let's see. Oh, but yeah. Yeah, I guess like an example of something like where the whole like get method stuff for what I've been doing in my game recently, because a lot of the way I've been accessing some of the stuff when I have done object-oriented stuff in the past for my game was just directly access the variables because it's the easiest way to do it, and it realistically has been easy. But recently, when I've been upgrading the physics system to be a bit more modular to work with external entities and stuff, I've changed how stuff works, and it's no longer possible to directly access the variables because of how I've abstracted everything. Because, again, abstraction is one of those core fundamental principles of object-oriented programming, and it can actually make things a little bit easier to implement if you're thinking about things correctly. At least that's how I've viewed the abstraction principles. But yeah, I need to get more dirt out. But yeah, like the way I've done like entity implementations with my game is I've gone and not the ender chest is what I meant to get out there. The way I typically have, or the way I decided to do things for some reason was I just basically have a class which is just a framework for other classes to inherit and overwrite. And instead of just including variables within that class that can just generally be used and made a mess of, I decided to instead only write various methods for acquiring that stuff within the class, and then require all the variants of entities or whatever to define and implement those methods themselves. So anytime that the entities are used in their raw form, they will always have this set of functions which you will always know you can use with them. But the implementation and what variables they go to and whatnot is actually all very specific to the specific type of entity, I guess, that you would be using. At least that's the way I've implemented it. Maybe I'll find that maybe implementing stuff myself would be, or maybe implementing something globally would be a useful thing. But for now, it's just everything has to be locally implemented. Well, for the most part, at least. Which is so far worked out just fine for the game. Oh yeah. Something else that I was thinking about recently, kind of related to programming and stuff, is... actually, I'm gonna need to give some background on this. So first of all, this whole topic kind of revolves around the game scrap mechanic, if you've ever heard about it. It's a 3D sandbox game that allows you to build stuff in a world that actually, I believe, started as the console port of Minecraft before the studio was just like, you know what, we want to go in a completely different direction. Mojang, you can go with someone else, which I believe ended up being 4J, and we will just do our own thing here. And I mean, one of the key mechanics of this game is you can rotate stuff. But one of the issues that this game has, and that people often complain about, is that the ground is kind of paper thin. If you hit the ground going too fast, you'll just go right through it, and stuff can also just straight up fall through the ground, because of how the physics engine works. And so this one YouTuber, I believe the name, who goes by the name of Durf, was at one point just like so complaining about how it works. It's like, guys, like it's like really easy to actually fix this issue, because you see, you just got to do this one thing. And like the thing he described was like, in a one-dimensional system, you can draw a line between a line and an object, and if the line between those objects went negative or anything like that, it's like, okay, you're beneath it, push it up. And he was like, guys, this is just so simple. But I've had some various issues with that. What happens to me is that I get frustrated. I feel like I've already lost the opportunity to learn the program, but Since I was 3 years old, I was always good at the computer, but since I play games, I don't do anything with the... I don't know whether to choose software engineering or electrical engineering. Well, I don't know. I honestly have no idea what you would be better at in there, but yeah, you can, I don't know, just get a feel for stuff. If you like doing a lot more just like math calculations and stuff, well, I mean, I don't know how much of electrical engineering is more math calculations and stuff. I don't know. Each of those fields is a bit different. Anyhow. Oh, it's fine or whatever. But, yeah, it's, yeah, I mean, I guess that's tough. You just gotta, I guess, work your way through it, figure out a way to keep moving. But anyhow, back to the story. So, the major problems with the method that Durf proposed for fixing this issue is, first of all, that he was doing this entire thing in a one-dimensional space. Every additional dimension of physics that you add creates an exponentially more complex system of for making any sorts of equations or computations on stuff. Now, what was the first problem? So, because guys, it's so simple. Meanwhile, doing it in one dimension, and obviously Scrap Mechanic is a game played in 3 dimensions. But the other problem was that, sure, maybe you could draw a line between the lowest vertex of an object and the ground if the ground was one solid plane at just like y equals 0, or I guess z equals 0, because that's how Scrap Mechanic does it. But that is also incredibly misguided, because the ground in Scrap Mechanic is not flat. It's, you know, shaped into terrain. It's made of tons of like thousands of tiny little triangles that you have to collide with. So now you have the challenge of calculating whether or not you are or drawing a line between the lowest part of the object that you are calculating physics from down to whatever specific triangle of land is beneath it, and only that specific triangle of land, and detecting whether you are beneath that. That is an incredibly complex process, because I believe the way the Scrap Mechanic currently does it is they just have some static thickness to the ground tiles, and they just do a normal physics collision operation with the ground, and if you miss it, you miss it. The way that they'd have to do stuff for the method that Durf described just doesn't make any sense in a 3D physics engine. Especially, I believe the physics engine that Scrap Mechanic ends up actually using is called bullet physics, which I've never used, but I don't know. Apparently it can be quite advanced and complex, and I don't know. It generally seems to have decent accuracy and whatnot for how Scrap Mechanic does stuff. But just trying to like implement that method described by Durf within that does not seem realistically feasible without an immense amount of effort. It's not nearly as simple as he made it seem. Anyhow, I have now been live for 2 hours, and I'm actually getting close to the halfway point, which is the point at which I think I'm going to stop here for today. Just keep building, though. Just keep building. I mean, I will probably almost certainly finish this off stream. Maybe I'll mention it offhand at the end of the episode. I also have to edit the episode that's going out on Sunday. Lots and lots and lots of effort. I was on this end. Boop that there. Sun is going down. Ah! Oh, also something that I was reminded about recently, that a lot of people don't see... So there's a feature within Lightmatica that a lot of people don't seem to realize exists. And that is specifically, if you're looking at a block, you could press I to bring up this overlay here, which will give you information about the block. It'll tell you the name, what its Minecraft ID is, all the various properties about the block. Now, obviously, its function is in like schematics, like right here. It'll show you what the schematic is actually doing. But outside the schematic, it also does work. It also has a useful feature when it comes to containers and schematics. It'll show you what was in the container in the schematic if I think you made the schematic in a single-player world. What the hell is this zombie? So it's very useful, and people don't seem to know that it's a thing. So people are always going into F3 like, oh, what block am I targeting? What thing am I doing? It's like, it's not that complex, guys. If you have Lightmatica installed, which, I mean, okay, fair point. A lot of people don't have Lightmatica installed, or at least if they do, they don't really use it all that often. But if you have it installed, it's a very useful feature. And you should definitely make use of it, because, you know, these utility mods provide a lot of utility. Also, the, what's it? So, actually, in, Minecraft, so, I believe for 1.20.5, I believe it's surprisingly fast. A lot of the mods that I've seen are actually updating relatively quickly. Like, I believe for like all the mods that are I forget the name of the guy who actually develops these mods is. But the ones that use Malilib or whatever, those are all basically updated already. I believe they just have I believe they all have pull requests on them ready to go for 1.20.5. Just gotta make a couple things. I don't even know if it's the guy who owns the repository who did that or someone else was just like pre-planning to do it. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. I mean, the main hurdle with mods is definitely the upgrade in the version of Java. Now, in the development environment, I believe you do have to set the mod to the same version of Java as the version of Java for the mod that the mod is using to the same one as the game is using in order to test it in the development environment. But all things considered, I don't think you'll be prevented from loading a mod that was compiled with Minecraft, or that was compiled before 1.20.5 in Java 17. I don't think there's anything that will realistically prevent a mod like that from being successfully loaded on newer versions of Minecraft, as long as as long as it's not broken in other ways. I don't think there's any issues with it, or where it should work, because Java is largely backwards compatible with loading stuff from previous versions. It's just that there's a high degree of likelihood that all the APIs and stuff have changed and whatnot, so your mod is probably broken anyway. But if your mod isn't broken, it can be loaded just fine. Like, I believe Syncmatica, I don't know, obviously Lightmatica's not yet out. I don't know if Syncmatica works yet, but I was able to with the current version that at least I have for it. The version that I ended up compiling myself for some reason. I think the reason is it just wasn't properly available yet. That version loaded up in 1.20.5 just fine for me, so I was like, okay, well, when Lightmatica comes out, we'll test it. I know there was some changes to Minecraft signaling protocols in 20.5, so it'll be interesting to see if it's broken or not. Food. Give me a moment. You can... Just gonna send that to him, because yes, we are almost done. We were almost halfway, and I'll end the stream once we're halfway. Ah, okay. Well, I meant to do that. I meant to do that. Yes, I meant to do that. That was totally intentional, guys. I didn't like accidentally fall off or anything like that. But yeah, after I get this little segment here done, I'll be I'll be halfway done with this, which is good enough for me and good enough for the thing. It's not going to be too much longer here. I do not think, at least, it's going to be too much longer here. I am ready and going, and man, my breath smells terrible because I've been drinking soda. Healthy? No, not at all. Why do you ask? I mean, I have recently tried to reduce all the sugar and shit that I'm intaking, because I realized that's probably not as healthy. Then in other ways, I'm like, why do I care? Hopefully I don't have any more cavities or anything that I need to fill, because last year I had a cavity that I need to fill. Although, granted, that I got that cavity in the fall semester, and nothing appeared in the spring semester where I was being smarter about it, so... Everything is okay, guys. Everything is okay. Nothing's on fire. Don't worry about it. Don't look at the smoke behind the curtain. Everything is okay. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. That's just the Aurora Borealis. Yes, that's what it is. And this time of year, it's, yes, this time of year, this time of country, localized entirely within the room. Don't worry about it. It is, it's completely fine, completely natural. You should know these things. You've lived on Earth for how long now? You know, just don't look at the records. Don't look at my, just don't look at my public records or anything. Ugh, what am I doing? Well, I know what I am doing. I'm almost done doing is building half of this face, and then you can just imagine what the other half looks like by just mirroring what this looks like. I mean, obviously I can... Okay. Obviously I can like just look out this way and like that's what it looks like physically, but on the map you can just mirror what's currently there and it's like... Bam. Anyhow. I'm gonna start signing off here. So yeah, I'm gonna now say thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Please make sure to leave a like on the stream on your way out, and subscribe to ring that bell if you want to be notified of future live streams like this one, which, as I mentioned earlier, but I'll mention again, will probably be a lot less scheduled than this, so you'll need those notifications to be notified when I go live. But yeah, thank you for watching. Check out my game, which is linked in the description down below, and I will see you all next time in the next thing that I do. Bye!